After 2 very successful Halloween specials, there was no doubt that a third would take place. However, there was a little pushback. The animators took issue with how difficult the episodes were to produce because they had to create new animations, new characters, new locations, and these all took significantly longer than a traditional episode of the series. They could always go back to templates for a regular episode, but here they had to create most things from scratch. For the writers though, being assigned on a Treehouse of Horror episode was seen as almost a badge of honor, and gave them much more creative freedom to do things with the characters that couldn't be done on a regular episode. Series creator Matt Groening was also a big proponent of the horror-themed episodes, but didn't see them moving forward as a 3-story anthology structure because he didn't think they'd have enough ideas to continue in that direction. And he may have been correct in that assumption when in later seasons they were spoofing things like Mr. and Mrs. Smith, which is as far away from horror and Halloween as one can get. The episode also had an issue as after the color version came back from Korea, the writers held a screening of the episode and noticed it just wasn't working. So with 6 weeks left until air date, they went back and wrote 88 new lines for the episode, which was a near complete overhaul. And with how close they were to the premiere, they really had to work hard to get it finished. Treehouse of Horror 3 starts in largely the same way as the previous 2 entries, except it's now Homer giving the audience the warning of the scary and violent content about to be watched. By this point though, producers were already starting to realize the audience now knows what to expect when going into one of these episodes, so the opening warning isn't as necessary as maybe it once was. The opening shot is a riff on the opening to Alfred Hitchcock Presents, except in this version the joke is supposed to be that Homer was fatter than Hitchcock. The tombstones make their return once again, however they started to become a point of contention. Not only were they difficult to think of new names each year, they often used names of cancelled TV shows, and friends of theirs who worked on those shows didn't really appreciate the jokes. Although they could have used names of just about anything, so I don't know why they would intentionally anger their friends. This episode is also the first to have a horror-themed couch gag, which would become a new tradition for the foreseeable future. This year's wraparound segment has the Simpsons hosting a Halloween party for all the kids.
Behold mighty Caesar in all his glory!
Homer losing his robe and having on tighty whities was one of the first shows to popularize this. Back in the day, boxers with red polka dots were usually worn as the punchline to the joke, mostly because they were seen as being less vulgar. To avoid any issues they may have had with censors, they left Homer flat looking, as any kind of bulge could have left the producers in hot water.
Stupid party. Wish we was trick-or-treating.
Bart here is dressed as Alex DeLarge from A Clockwork Orange, famously played by Malcolm McDowell, though I'm not sure it's something the average 10-year-old would have seen or even known about. After Homer ruins the kids' Halloween fun, they decide to tell some scary stories, which is akin to the first Treehouse of Horror.
It's the story of a boy and his doll.
That's not so scary.
A doll from hell.
I'm gonna go to the store.
The first segment, Clown Without Pity, takes its name from a Gene Pitney song called Town Without Pity, and is based on the Twilight Zone episode Living Doll, the made-for-TV movie Trilogy of Terror, and the film Child's Play. After Homer forgets to get his son a present for his birthday, he rushes to a shop that sells evil and cursed artifacts, including a monkey's paw. The shop owner himself is based off Mr. Wing, who owns the shop Mr. Peltzer gets Gizmo from in the movie Gremlins.
Ooh, that's bad.
But it comes with a free Frogut.
That's good.
The Frogut is also cursed.
That's bad.
The entire that's good, that's bad back and forth used here is based off an old vaudeville comedy routine and was used mostly because it would save on animation costs. However, it became one of the episode's most well-remembered bits. Homer returns to Bart with his new talking Krusty doll, and for some reason the doll has taken a disliking to Homer.
I'm Krusty the Clown and I don't like you. I'm Krusty the Clown and I'm going to kill you.
The doll threatens to kill Homer, but when his family comes to check on him, it just lays there still. It repeatedly attempts to attack Homer with various edged weapons until he's had all about he can take and attempts to get rid of it.
Goodbye, Dolly.
But when he returns home, the Krusty doll had strapped itself to the bottom of his car, which the writers took from the Robert De Niro film Cape Fear, which had just come out earlier that year. They also used the gag again in the season 5 episode Cape Fear, where Sideshow Bob is trying to kill Bart.
Guess who, fat boy?
Marge, look!
Homer is attacked by the doll once again, but this time Marge is a witness to the entire thing, so she makes a call to the manufacturer for help.
Your doll is trying to kill my husband. Yes, I'll hold.
The music Marge listens to while on hold is an actual song called Everybody Loves a Clown by Gary Lewis and the Playboys. When a representative comes to rectify the issue, he notices that someone had switched it to evil, but why it has a switch that can make it evil in the first place is beyond me. The writers apparently didn't know how to end the episode, and this was the best they could come up with. A talking Krusty doll was going to be made around this time with the intention of including the lines from this episode, but the company that was set to produce it got cold feet and wouldn't make the doll with any of the horror elements. The first segment is overall really good and one of the stronger segments to come out of the Treehouse of Horror series.
So then his wife comes through the door.
So?
Did I mention she was dead?
No.
Well, she was.
The next segment, King Homer, is a faithful adaptation of the 1933 film King Kong and just might be the best retelling of the film. It's not poorly made like the 76 version, or way too long like the Peter Jackson version. Producer Sam Simon had always wanted to do a King Kong parody, and series creator Matt Groening calls this segment one of his favorites in the entire Treehouse of Horror series. The segment begins with Marge taking the spot of Ann Darrow, an actress responding to an ad placed by Mr. Burns, who needs a single white female for a mysterious expedition.
What do you think, Smithers?
I think women and semen don't mix.
We know what you think. Young lady, you're hired.
In the original King Kong, there were a lot more scenes prior to the crew making their voyage to Skull Island. The writers for this segment wrote a lot more to mirror the movie, but they had to cut most of it out because there simply wasn't enough time. They would have needed an entire episode dedicated to this one segment if they wanted to keep everything in. Instead of Skull Island, they're heading to Ape Island so they can capture the legendary ape, Homer.
Am I going too?
Of course. We wouldn't think of going without the bait. That is, the bait thing beauty, the bathing beauty.
Once they make their way to the island, they're spotted by the natives who yell, Mosi Tutupu, which was the name of an NFL running back, but I guess sounded foreign enough that most people like myself would never know what it really was.
He's saying, we wouldn't dream of sacrificing the blue-haired woman.
Oh, well, isn't that... Whoa!
After tying Marge up, Homer is summoned by the natives, and they do a great job capturing the feeling of the original film. Producer Al Jean was really worried about this segment, as it would be the longest running black and white segment ever aired on the series at the time. He thought people might think their televisions were broken, and you can't knock the man for being concerned when they have to put hot warnings on coffee cups nowadays. They use Homer's distraction to gas him so they can bring him to New York and put him on Broadway. Obviously, if you know anything about the original story, then you know where this all leads. Homer goes on a rampage, eventually pulling Marge from her room and attempts to climb up the Empire State Building. I say attempts because unlike King Kong, Homer isn't nearly as in shape as Kong is. Instead of dying, Homer marries Marge, and the segment ends with a heart cutaway which was taken from a show called Love American Style. The episode originally had a different ending, but that was scrapped when they added in all the new lines. As far as the segment goes, this is a good one. Just a bit lighter on the gags, as it's more of a faithful retelling of the film.
Hey, hi, fellow Halloweenies.
The final segment, Dial Z for Zombies, is named after the Hitchcock film Dial M for Murder, and is a loose satire of Night of the Living Dead. However, it mostly just pokes fun of various tropes found within the zombie movie subgenre. By this season, the producers weren't as worried about the violence as they were in previous seasons, so they were able to get away with a lot more. The segment begins after Bart is forced to do another book report and comes across an occult section he seemingly never noticed.
What's this?
Bart takes home a book of evil and spells and decides to help a mourning Lisa bring her dead cat Snowball 1 back to life. There is a second cemetery gag here as we go to the pet cemetery this time and find the names of 3 cancelled animated shows: Fish Police, Capital Critters, and Family Dog.
Colin, Rayburn, Nars, Trebek.
Throughout the episode, Bart will use spells that contain names of various pop culture references or brand names. Cullen, Rayburn, Nars, Trebek are all last names of game show hosts. Zabar, Kresge, Caldor, Walmart are all names of department stores past and present. Kojak, Mannix, Banachek, Dano are all names of 70s TV detectives, and Trojan, Ramses, Magnum, and Chic are all past and present brand names for condoms.
You cast the wrong spell! Zombies! Please, Lise, they prefer to be called the living impaired.
With zombies now on the loose, Bart and Lisa have to race home to tell Homer, while the townsfolk become victims of the Walking Dead.
Did you wreck the car?
No?
Did you raise the dead?
Yes!
But the car's okay.
Uh-huh.
All right then.
Even though there are zombies everywhere, the kids are still required to go to school, although immediately following that, they're barricading their windows to stop the zombie threat.
Spare my family. Take me. Take me. Brains!
The trope of zombies needing brains was first brought up in the 1984 film Return of the Living Dead. Although here it's played perfectly to comedic effect. The Simpsons decide the only way to stop the zombies is to return to the library and find another book that may break the spell. This leads to one of the greatest gags in the history of The Simpsons.
Dad, you killed the zombie Flanders!
He was a zombie?
This joke was written by Mike Reese, who is currently a producer on the show. Kang and Kodos make their return once again in a very brief cameo, which is really just footage taken from the previous year's Treehouse of Horror, except with no peace symbol on Earth. The Simpsons make it to the school, and for some reason a bunch of historical figures are all there at the same time.
Take that, Washington! Eat lead, Einstein! Show's over, Shakespeare!
Bart and Lisa find another book and manage to reverse the spell, which sends the zombies back to their graves. Well, most of the zombies anyways, as some just seem to rot in the streets. Dial Z for Zombies is the best segment of the episode and often ranks as one of the best segments of this series. The episode then ends with the same spookified theme from previous years, however this year's episode doesn't end with the wraparound segment, instead finishing off with Dial Z for Zombies, which is a first. Upon release, Treehouse of Horror 3 was viewed by 13.7 million households, making it the highest rated Fox show during that week. Critics were very high on the episode, claiming it to be yet another improvement over the previous year's installment, with the standout segment being Dial Z for Zombies. It was nominated for 2 Emmy Awards, but unfortunately didn't win any. Treehouse of Horror 3 is yet another excellent addition into the series. Clown Without Pity is a great segment with fun nods to The Twilight Zone, Trilogy of Terror, and the Child's Play series. King Homer is criminally underrated, and maybe I'm a bit biased because I love the original King Kong so much, but I think this one is often overlooked. It might not have as many gags, but the ones it does are all top notch.
I think you're making him angry.
Come on, what you gonna do? Run amok in downtown Springfield?
And Dial Z for Zombies is just so much fun. Who doesn't love a good zombie story? Well, before the genre became oversaturated with like 500 Walking Dead spin-offs. Next Tuesday, we continue our look at Simpsons Treehouse of Horror with Part 4. But in the meantime, if you'd like to learn more about the Twilight Zone episode that inspired Clown Without Pity, I made a video on that and you can watch it right here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.
Thursday, it's Halloween at The Simpsons.
Behold mighty Caesar in all his glory!
An all-new Simpsons, followed by Martin, Thursday.